Hello, Soul Sisters. Today we're going to be talking about emotional mastery, which is my bag. This is what I do. As a trigger guardian, I hold space for you and myself to roll with all of those things that raise the triggers within us, that create the emotional charge, and to work out the best ways of the tools, the resources, the communities that will help you to come out of stress and into satisfaction. Let's start living from the soul instead of our circumstances. Let's do this. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Awakened Divine Feminine podcast, where I, Evening Star Nightwalker, will be your host. Today, we're talking about emotional mastery. And what is that? And is it even possible? You see, emotions are energy demanding motion, but in so many cases, our emotions and our hormonal disruptions, which cause emotions, our thoughts that create these feelings that then create our emotions, all of our habits, our behaviors, everything in our life kind of piles up on itself and creates what I call kind of your subconscious filing cabinet of shit that creates these triggers that you might be having a conversation with a friend, with one of your kids, with your partner, with someone at work, and something in the way they've said something. It's often not the words that they say themselves, but it might be the way, the tone in which they say it. It might be a facial expression. It might be their body language. And all of a sudden you have this sometimes what feels like a rational surge of emotion that comes through that it starts to trigger these patterns, these ingrained responses within you of thinking, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, they don't like me, what have I done that's so wrong? Or even, starting to project your own feelings onto them, like, how dare they? Don't they know who I am? It's one of my favorite sayings. So when we start talking about emotional mastery, we really need to think about what it is within our life or our lives that create stress in the first place, because stress is a huge factor when it comes to being able to, look at the triggers for our emotional responses. And that's kind of the foundational level. We look at stress, we look at our habits, our patterns. Are we drinking coffee in the morning? If you've been listening to me at all, please know that one of the biggest things I will always tell you is that as a woman, especially, some men can cope with it, but 9 out of 10 women cannot cope with coffee at all in their systems. But no one can cope with having coffee straight up in the morning. And the reason that is because our bodies have been fasting overnight and your bloodstream is, pretty empty and it's, detoxifying. And if you put a stimulant straight in, you create this absolute rush of insulin's actually stimulated as well. And your body goes into this heightened stress response because caffeine has that ability in your body to tell your physiological or your bodily responses that it's time to be on. And it's like it's almost like electric shock to your body. It's like, let's do this. But as it picks you up really quickly, it's also going to drop you on your ass just as quick and leave you feeling more tired than you were when you woke up. So please always have something in your system, whether it be, look, I always advocate go to the supermarket, buy some of the baby food, whether it be stewed apples or some pears or whatever it might be, and have, a squeezy thing of yogurt. Just if you are struggled for time or if you've got the excuse machine happening and you can't figure out how you can eat in the morning because you don't feel like food, have some stewed apple out of a packet that's made for babies, and then you just squeeze it into your mouth and wait 10 to 15 minutes. That's all you have to do. And your entire system will have a massively different effect from that caffeine first thing in the morning. And if you do have caffeine on an empty stomach, what will happen is that you won't actually be able to come out of the fight and flight response all day until you actually get into that state of rest again through sleep at night. So we all know that when we're tired and we are, we're overwhelmed, things like that, our emotions are so much more heightened. So please look at also your sleep. When is the last caffeinated drink that you have of the day? When is it that you actually start to turn the lights off, the screens off, and you start to wind down for your evening? You see, serotonin and melatonin kind of work like a seesaw, and serotonin is what is stimulated in our body when we start waking up and we look at the sun rising and the light comes into our eyes, and serotonin is stimulated. And naturally, when we were nomadic and we lived outdoors a lot more, we didn't have all these crazy, chemical lights. What would happen is as the sun was going down, the serotonin would naturally decrease and you would be stimulating within your natural melatonin levels. Hands up, who knows, half the people at least that they know, or at least, 90% of the kids we know are actually all on melatonin. And I'm wondering, what if we actually went back to all of our lamps in our house being below eye level? And that's your kids' eye level, not just your eye level. What about if we turned our screens off, like at dinner time, and then had a chance to play some board games and read some books and do all those sort of beautiful things as a family? What if we actually got into bed with enough time to wind down instead of getting into bed and expecting to sleep and then getting frustrated because it's taking too long? If you get into bed by 9:30 and read for half an hour or so, remember that every hour of sleep before midnight is equal to 2 hours sleep after. Also, it naturally takes about, I can't think of the exact statistic right now off my head, the exact amount of time, but it's naturally 45 minutes to an hour for your body to fall asleep at night when you start to lie down and, get into that relaxation mode. So if you are going to bed at night and you're falling straight asleep within that first 15 minutes, that's not because you're a great sleeper, that's because you're exhausted. And when we are exhausted, our emotions run high. When we have all of this kind of foundational physiological body stuff sorted and we're eating really well and we're sleeping really well and, we're not putting too many caffeinated drinks in our bodies, we start to feel so much more at ease within ourselves. The other things that really come into understanding our own emotional mastery is our subconscious patterning. And what is it that we're holding in that subconscious filing cabinet that we picked up when we were younger, from things our parents have said or our caregivers, from things that they did, from off the hand, like comments like, oh, you're so silly, instead of saying, oh, what you're doing is silly. All of these things that go into our filing cabinet that create these emotional charges and these, unconscious stories we hold about ourselves tend to be a lot of what is fueling some of our living the great life. I'm meditating, I'm doing the work, but I still feel fucking angry. Sorry if there's kids listening. These things we can store in our subconscious, and it's not until we start to really get into understanding and unpacking what it is that's, in there, or even just doing the work in a private subconscious kind of way to be able to reorder or reorganize those neurons within your mind and body that have been going a certain way for a long time, and right now you're trying to tell yourself, okay, I don't need to think that way anymore. I don't need to feel that way anymore. These emotional charges, these things that happened to me from childhood, it's time that I started to reduce that emotional charge. And we do that through truly understanding our bodies so well. In my beautiful program called Rise, we start to look at the beautiful emotional mastery and manifesting the life of your dreams by beginning with your foundation. It starts in the base chakra. Where have you lost your safety and security? What are these unconscious patternings that you've been telling yourself? What is the soul wounding that you've come into this life with? We might look at a Chiron placement in your birth chart. We will look at the soul numbers attached to your spiritual profile that let us know what your core wounding is and how to work with it, so that you know when these things in your life are turning up and you know how to actually notice when you are kind of living out these old emotional patterns that are creating the emotional charge. So when we start with this foundation, it's like having a really beautiful, grounded, anchored space in which to stand. Instead of standing on a wobble board and doing all this spiritual work and trying to manifest your life and then falling off and breaking your bloody neck and going, well, I got a glimpse of what I wanted, but now I'm, bankrupt again and I don't know why I'm here. Or another relationship has fallen apart and I don't know why I keep repeating the same old patterns. We keep repeating the same old patterns because this is how we're programmed. If you want to start living in alignment with your soul instead of your circumstances, living in alignment with your core and not your conditioning, we have to do the work. And the work comes, the work that I do and the work that has helped me really shift out of a lot of this unconscious programming to stop, I'm sure all of us as mothers, if you're a mother, you've heard your mother's voice come out of your mouth, and it's because it's conditioned. And it's not because our mothers did a terrible job or anything like that, but we want to be our unique and individual selves, and we want to parent potentially differently than our mothers did. And it's really quite shocking when you kind of go, oh, I'm actually parenting in the same way. I have the same emotional responses, and I thought I'd done the work, but yet I'm really finding that I'm actually becoming a mini-me of my caregivers or my society or my culture, and I'm conforming and I'm not living my best life, and I'm so angry all the time, or I can't stop crying. All of these things are coming up as a way for your body to say, sweetheart, we have some more work to do. We have to look at realigning our life with our second biological clock. If you want to jump back to one of my other podcasts around moving with the moon and feeling like a goddess, all month long, that will tell you all about your second biological clock, your infradian rhythm. Understanding that back in the day when we had tribes and elders and community, young kids would go out with the adults and learn about the seasons. But with puberty, the young girls would come into the red tent. They would come into the women's circle. They would do, the sacred women's business. And through hanging out with the aunties and the mothers and the grandmothers, they would learn what it was like to be a wife, to also, to have a cycle, to be pregnant and have babies, and all of those beautiful things were passed down through story. And the boys, when they hit puberty, they would go out with their uncles and they would learn about the seasons. And I was reading a beautiful book on I never say this word right, Kudoshka, which is an ancient, I'm not even going to say this right, but I want to say it's an ancient sexual art of energy, of understanding our own energies. And there was a beautiful part in this book that talked about a young boy who was talking about going out with the uncles, and by doing that, he learnt about the seasons. He learnt about how the world, the universe, Mother Earth moves through her cycle. And he said by doing this, he learnt how to be with his wife, how to understand her cycles. And in today's society, when we keep pushing against feeling tired, when we keep having to get up and do the same thing day in, day out, and expect our bodies and our minds and our emotions to stay stable when we are not honoring and really coming into alignment with the 4 phases of our menstrual cycle, then we are going to be emotional messes. So becoming a master of your emotions, you really have to know yourself. You have to get into the heart of things. We have to look at forgiveness and acceptance. We have to look at understanding where all the threads of what's made you, and to be able to love every part of you, the light and the dark, to be able to have a community of sisters, hopefully that you can share all of the deeper yearning, the deeper witnessing, the deeper knowledge that you learn about yourself, even the crappy parts, because the crappy parts hold gifts as well. But when we start to change and we start to do life in a different way, we will have emotions bubble to the surface. And these emotions are teaching us about ourselves even deeper. They are showing us that we may be out of alignment with the things that we just said. Maybe we're saying things out of programming instead of actually drawing on those beautiful foundational roots, drawing it up through your belly, up through your heart, and really sitting in that throat chakra and saying to yourself, I speak my truth openly and honestly. And from that place, it's a conscious awakening, a conscious ability to know thyself. And to know that emotions are energy demanding motion. And when you know yourself so well and you know the emotions are coming up, what do you need to do when you feel sad? Instead of sucking it up, putting it under the rug, pretending it's not there, what can you do for yourself when you feel angry? I used to love going for a run, and now I take my puppy for a walk when I'm angry. And I get down to the beach and I scream at the waves. And if I can, I get in the water because the waters cleanse and heal my soul. And that is balm for all of my emotions, because that beautiful Mother Earth's ocean, she holds me. And water is the element of emotions. It's that watery parts within us, all those parts that we've been told all of our lives to, be seen and not heard, and don't speak up for fear of, retaliating or not being accepted. Don't show your emotions because that's not acceptable. A little boy would run into a room and knock things over and run into the walls and be screaming, and everyone laughs and says, oh, boys will be boys. But still I see, if a young girl did that, everyone would be shocked and going, well, is she okay? So why is it any different for us as women to use our self-expression in ways that are no longer inhibited by what society says is okay? Let's untame all this wildness within ourselves and come into deeper truth with your own emotions. And as you do, we are in Pisces season right now. And, even if you're listening to this podcast and it's not Pisces season, there's always emotional undercurrents through all of the astrological signs. But we are in this time of beautiful, deep, intuitive knowing. This beautiful portal of what is it within me that needs to awaken. And if your emotions are coming to the surface, how can you be with that emotion without story, without the way that we've been conditioned to analyze and excavate and pick apart why we feel a certain way? Sometimes we just need to feel. And to be able to feel, then we can heal. And as we do that, we can come into a space within ourselves where our emotions no longer run our lives. We can come into alignment. Our hormones are flowing. Our energy is high when it needs to be high. And we are understanding how to communicate our truth. We know how to communicate what we desire. And when we do, our emotions can come up to say, hey, there's something here that's trapped. Let's feel it. Let's express it. Let's let it move. Do your work and work with me here. Let's let go of the story of why I'm coming up. Let's just be angry. Let's just be sad. Let's be frustrated. And use a tool that I do. Hey guys, if I'm in my house and I turn around to my daughter and go, whoa, I'm really feeling this sadness coming on. It's got nothing to do with you, sweetie, but I'm just going to go and have, some time on my own, and I'll sit and I'll journal and I'll cry, or I'll run a bath and just let the tears flow. If I'm angry, I'll say, sweetheart, I'm feeling this huge intensity of emotion coming on, I'm about to lose it and get really angry. Again, this has got nothing to do with you, but I wouldn't be here if I were you. And so she tends to, toddle off to another room, and I'll start to really feel in my body and draw up this energy, and I'll be like, rah, like expressing it. I'll beat up a cushion. I might go for a run up and down the driveway. If I can, I'll take both Paige and my dog out for a walk and get down to the beach and really express this emotion that's coming through to honor where I'm at. And I know there's a lot of circumstances in our lives where these beautiful and wonderful emotions come up in the most inappropriate times. But this is a time where we can say, okay, body, I feel you. I hear you. I know that you are there, and I'm going to make time for you tonight when I get home. And then you get home and you make sure you do. And you really understand that you're not sad because someone's just said something that's triggered you. You're not angry with that person who said something that's triggered you, but you've got something within you that needs to shift. And to know yourself so intimately, to use your intuition, to be guided by your deeper wisdom. To me, that is how you manifest the life of your dreams and become the master of your own emotions. And that's what Rise is all about. And Rise is beginning on our online journey of Rise is beginning on the spring and autumn equinoxes this year, because yes, we work with women all over the world, and it's March the 20th or the 21st. And so I cannot wait to take in another cohort of beautiful soul sisters who are ready to explore their deeper emotions, who are ready to rise into the women that you were born to be. And these women are often the black sheeps. They're the ones that go, I've never really fit in and I don't know why. And my emotions are often really intense. Or we're going through a phase of our life where we're transitioning from one thing to another. Maybe we've been in a long-term relationship and it wasn't working for us anymore. Maybe our children are leaving home. Maybe we're getting to that point of menopause and we're thinking, what is it in me that is aligned with who I truly am? And what do I want to take into this next phase of my life? You don't have to be going through a major life transition, but it tends to be. A lot of the women have deeper questioning about, decisions and purpose and passion and drive, and they're wanting ways to really access that and dive into what that means. So if you're interested in Rise, I will pop a link for that below. And when you might jump on a call if you've got any questions, there'll be a link for that as well. But when you are ready to rise, this calling is something you can't ignore. The automatic pilot, the emotional outbursts, the unfulfilled lack of vitality just isn't enough anymore. So if you are ready to rise into your emotional mastery so you can and you will manifest the life of your dreams, then click that link below and I will see you in Rise, sister. Take care, and I will see you when I see you where I see you. Bye for now.